Sorry to Bother You is a 2018 sci-fi absurdist black comedy film written and directed by American rapper, singer, and songwriter Boots Riley. In it, we follow Cassius Cash Green as he takes on a job as a telemarketer, using his white voice to rise up the ranks and eventually become a power caller, much to the chagrin of his activist friends who are attempting to unionize. As a power caller, he finds himself selling the worry-free solution: cheap, unlimited labor provided by employees signed to lifetime contracts that pay not in money, but in housing, food, and other necessities at the factories where they work. He's selling slaves. He's basically selling slaves. But the bigger twist of Sorry to Bother You happens much later than that. You see, Worry-Free may be selling slaves, but they're not exactly human ones. They're instead selling literal workhorses in the form of the Equisapiens, half-human, half-horse people who are primarily sourced from majority black areas such as Compton. Torchin's Alienated Labor's Hybrid Subjects breaks down Riley's choice of including such an out-there twist as something that invokes the dehumanization of African-American slave labor, alongside the shared sexual and capitalistic idioms attributed to both black men and horses, hung like a horse and the aforementioned workhorse, for example. However, I would like to argue that Boots Riley's decision to include the Equisapiens in Sorry to Bother You also relies on a different historical yet contemporary connection between blackness, particularly black men, and horses to support its anti-capitalist critique. Said connection being what I like to call the domination fantasy, the white supremacist desire to control and dominate black bodies, to humble the stronger specimen and thus assuage the ego. Within the racial framework of enslavement and white supremacy, black men are reduced to being big, strong, and stupid objects. They are no more than their bodies, which are suited for hard labor and held back by their barbaric, sexual, and violent tendencies. Despite racial stereotyping of black men painting them as stronger than their white counterparts, this only serves white supremacy because it allows for the white man to experience the superiority that comes from conquering. If they can take this savage animal, this buck, and break him into subservience, then mankind has truly prevailed against nature. The strongest example of this argument can be found in Presbyterian minister and theologian Benjamin Palmer's Thanksgiving sermon, in which he argues that enslaved Africans were being saved from their own vile nature through their enslavement, and that if they were to be released from servitude, they would enact horrors among themselves, the land, and of course their former protectors. It is under this basis that taming the black body is justified, and if this happens to support their true monetary reasons for continuing slavery, free and endless labor, then that's just an extra benefit. This desire to tame nature is just as prominent within humanity's interactions with horses throughout history. Consider the spectacle of bronc riding, the rodeo event in which a cowboy or cowgirl is tasked with riding a bucking, feral horse for at least 8 seconds without being thrown off. In essence, this is a competition between man and horse to see who comes out on top between the animal that desires freedom and the man who desires ownership and obedience. This event is derived from the necessary horse taming practices enacted throughout history to train horses for whatever is asked of them, be it warfare, farm work, or transportation. Said practices are also known as buck breaking, a term that has fallen out of use due to its other known definition, the act of publicly humiliating the strongest or most untamable male enslaved African through flogging, sexual assault, or other means to encourage subordination and obedience. While the specifics of this practice, or what constitutes buck breaking versus the many other forms of humiliation and abuse prevalent in America at the time, are stipulated, the existence of the term and its application to both black men and horses is something to consider when interacting with Sorry to Bother You and the Equisapiens. Notably, this historical context is consistently alluded to throughout the work. The Equisapiens wear no clothes, and as such, their physique, strength, and sexuality are heavily emphasized at all times, to the point that when he's pitching the horse MLK inside man plan to Cash, Steve Lift makes sure to mention that
second one, I want you to remember this. You're gonna have a horse cock.
alongside the constant objectification, the ability to control them is the selling point. You don't just receive the worry-free solution, you own the worry-free solution. They are property, the same way enslaved people were. That being said, this is all just how Equisapiens are thought of and talked about. What about their actions? It should be noted that when we finally see the Equisapien strength utilized in the real world of Sorry to Bother You, i.e. outside the introductory video or discussions about them, it's being used for a cause the Equisapiens care about. We see them saving Cash and the other protesters from the police, who themselves are often perpetrators of white supremacist action and derivative of the slave catchers of early American history. Said slave catchers often shared techniques and even terminology with horse wranglers of the time. Right afterwards, when Cash attempts to thank the Equisapiens in broken English, assuming their transformations have impacted their intellectual capabilities, the Equisapien responds in flawless AAVE. They aren't stupid, and while in the context of the work this is showing that they don't inherit the mentalities of horses, when viewed with white supremacist stereotypes in mind, this is a rejection of the big, strong, and stupid black man. The next time we see them, they're breaking into Liv's house alongside a post-transformation Cash for what is presumably a good time for them and a bad time for Liv. In these instances, we are seeing Boots Riley reject the domination fantasy, alongside the racial stereotyping that comprises it. Capitalism needs to break the buck for profit, but these bucks cannot be broken, and I think that's beautiful.